Welcome to the Political Ferret Show. New content will be uploaded every Wednesday and Sunday, and if you like this kind of content, consider becoming a Patreon and help with just $1 a month to make the change possible. There is this notion that when governments would do what the free market does, governments would actually work. Of course, this is not a notion of the anarcho-capitalists, it is the notion of the classical conservative who agrees that we need the government to a certain degree, but they should act more like a free market system would work, more like a company, and then they would work. And I would say there is some truth in that, but let's try that out, shall we? So let's imagine we have the following situation. There is someone who will give you a loan. There is of course an investment, and in this case there is a possible investment with absolutely no risk, which means pretty much bringing the money to the bank and then they give you money back over time. And there's of course some inflation, which means that for the same amount of money you get less and less and less over the years. So let's say we have a system where you pay for the loan 10%. And you have this absolutely low risk investment that brings you 7% and you have an inflation of 3%. So what can you do with that? Well, it is not a good idea to take a loan and pay 10% for an investment where you get out 7% because you lose money in the end. But what you can do is you can go into a higher risk situation where you made 20% but with a risk to fail. This can make you rich, this can make you poor, it's your risk, you can do that, and some people decide to do that and become rich, and others decide to do that and become poor. Or you can say, I build myself a little house down in the green and I pay down my loan and then I have a house in the end. So, but let's imagine there is a different situation right now. So there is someone who comes up and say, I give you a loan with 1%. There is still this absolutely no problem, no risk investment at around 7%, and there is still the inflation at 3%. What you do? Well, if you are sane, you take the loan, bring it to the bank, and you made money. I mean, this is what everyone would do. I think there is no argument somewhere that this is a stupid idea. You go there, take the loan, you invest in the no risk investment, or in the high risk investment, or you build a house. It is a good deal. But let's imagine that this thing says, okay, I give you this 1% loan, but what you can't do with that is you can't go to the bank and you can't take this low risk thing. You have to invest in some way. What do? You still have there a loan at 1% that is lower than the inflation, and that's the important thing. You get a loan that is lower than the inflation. What do? Most people will still take this loan because from a capitalist point of view in regards to inflation, this is still a good deal. So you will take it. So now I tell you something. Governments, or things that are pretty much governments, communities and so on, they get this kind of loans and they look exactly like that. They say, I give you a loan with interest rates lower than the inflation, but you can't invest it, you can't give it just to the bank and get money for that, you have to invest it. We check that, you have to invest that has to go to the economy in some way or another. And what do? So of course there will some people come up and say, okay, that's not true, they don't get it because why should the banks do that? Well, this is pretty much a long con. They give this money to someone whom they know will never go bankruptcy and will be there in 200 years time. So this is a pretty neat investment into the future, and I mean banks do this for a long time. In Europe it is for centuries, and it is a good idea to do that and to trap them and to give them every more of them because you get more and more and more back over the years of money that does not exist in the first place. But this is something that the average guy does not understand, and this is something that is also very, very important. The average guy doesn't understand it because he sees that. He says, okay, my community can get 1% alone in a situation where we have 3% of inflation, and they build something with that. They build a school, or they build a housing for the people or something like that, and this looks like a good deal. And when you are in such a situation, and I was in such a situation where there was this loan in the air, and the community said, okay, do we take this loan or do we not take this loan? And of course the socialists said we have to take that because this is a good deal, and also the conservatives said, yeah, well, it is a neat deal, and you stand there in the middle. It is pretty tough. It is really tough. I mean, I was still a lefty there when I was in politics, so I think I voted for this loan, but I'm not completely sure. Might be that I voted against that because I was also young and also always against everything. But this is the thing that people see, and that's the problem. When you go into politics and when you talk to the average guy, he does not understand things like why the bank does this, what is the idea, why do they know that they get money out of that, how does this influence in the end your children and your grandchildren and so on and so on. They don't see that, they just see a good deal. And the thing is, most of you would also see this good deal, and I think a lot of you, especially the hardcore capitalists, would not say that they would not take the loan, especially if there is something that you want to have, like a house in the green or something like that. If you can get a 1% loan, this is a nice deal. So in this case, when you say the government should just do what the capitalists would do, they would take the loan, and ever more and ever more and ever more of them. But the thing is, the government is not a private company, because the government works differently, because they can get their money from the people by taxation, and there is nothing that they have per se to provide for the money they can get. And the banks know that. And the banks understand way better than most other people that the government is not a private company and works completely different than private companies. So saying, oh, we just have to take very skilled managers and put them into place in a government and then the government will work better is not correct, because the government works completely different than a company, because they get different offers from things like banks than a company would ever get. Thanks for watching, like, share and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.